A literary language is the form or register of a language used in written literature, which can be either or a non-standard dialect or the standardized variety of language. And yes, this discussion will lead to answer the question, is there a literary language? As far as most stylisticians are concerned, the short answer to the question which heads this unit is no. That is to say, there exists no feature or pattern of language which is inherently or exclusively literary in all contexts. This may seem a curious stance to adopt a given stylistic's close association with literary discourse. After all, literature offers the chance to explore language that is out of the ordinary language, which is often the permanent embodiment of the creative spirit. It is also the case that there have been, over the centuries, certain conventions in writing styles that mark certain literary epochs, such as the alliterative style of the Anglo-Saxon poem, the sonnet form of latter period in literary history, or latter again, forms like the novel and the novella. However, these forms of writing are more representative of specific codes or conventions of use which may change over time, rather than confirmation of the existence of this special language in its very essence is immutably and for all time literary. The question now begs is why, if there is such widespread rejection of the concept within stylistics, thus the issue of literary language need to be discussed or even mentioned? The answer to this question is the main focus of this unit. In the following subunit, some of the broader theoretical consequences of the literary language debate are framed, while the subunit after them that makes use of the short poem to extend and explore this problematic concept in a more practical and directed way. The literary language issue. Paul Sampson's arguments why literary language is not special. One of the most important concerns in the practice of stylistics is that the language used in literary text should not be caught adrift from its reflexes in the common resources of everyday discourse. Stylistics is interested in what writers do with and through language, and in the raw materials out of which literary discourse is crafted. As noted across the in AL, the tools of modern linguistics are drawn from the full system of language and discourse. So, it makes sense that those same tools to be used to see what writers do against this broader context. The aim is not to sequester off into a special category, significant aspect of literary style, but rather to look for the origins of this style in the overall totality of discourse. To claim a literary language with special features would be codify it and make it register with its special characteristic, systematize it. Originality would be lost. A writer should speak it to qualify. If it's special, then it would be taken away from the stylistics. The objective tools of analysis would not apply. In addition, the language used in literary texts should be not cut adrift from its reflexes in the common resources of everyday discourse. If we describe this or the pieces of discourse as literary language, we immediately places linguistic boundary around it. To claim that the literary language is special, that it can be somehow bracket off from the practice of stylistics.
Continue our report, we will be moving on to the Probing Literary Language. This short subunit explores further the problematic issue of literary language. To start us off, you will find below two-thirds of a poem, the name of its author, and the reason why you have been given only two of its three stanzas will emerge later. But as you read it through, try to identify any features of textual, construction, words, or phrases that you feel are literary or that you will normally associate with literature. One Perfect Rose is a poem written by Dorothy Parker. A single flower he sent me since we met, all tenderly his messenger he chose. Deep-hearted, pure with scented juice still, wet, one perfect rose. I knew the language of the floweret. My fragile lips, it said, his heart enclose. Love long has taken for his amulet one perfect rose. Why is it no one ever sent me yet? One perfectly missing, do you suppose? Ah no, it's always just my luck to get one perfect rose. With respect to the poem, consider the following questions. The first question is, how many speakers are there in the poem and how we can work this out from the text? A single speaker expresses an emotional state and mediates this through the popular symbol of the rose. The second question is, when is the poem set and how do we know? Other devices work to sustain this reading and to suggest that this is the written style of a bygone era. Question is, what sort of vocabulary is used by the poet? That is, it is modern or archaic, formal or conversational. Some of the vocabulary is clearly archaic, as in the obsolete, diminutive form floweret or the constructed from flower. The fourth question is, can you identify the rhyme scheme in the poem? If so, what sort of scheme it is? The rhyme scheme is tightly configured into an above pattern and is maintained even on the trisyllables floweret and amulet. The last question is, can you spot any mark or unusual features of grammar in a poem? In terms of its grammatical organization, many of the poem's clauses are structured in such a way as to bring to the front elements other than the grammatical subject. In fact, the clauses are tenderly his messenger he chose is particularly marked in this respect because it is fronted by two elements, an adjunct and then a complement, with the subject occurring in sentence final position. He chose his messenger all tenderly. No doubt, many more features could be identified which, in the conventional sense of the term, make this text feel like literary writing. The general tenor of the third stanza is a long way ended from the discourse of the 17th or 18th century love poem, although it does create a humorous play on the discourse frame. In fact, the poem was written in 1926 by the American wit and socialite Dorothy Parker. What Parker does is to use a kind of style shift, comic effect, where the echoes of the lyric genre in stanzas 1 and 2 give away in the third stanzas to an altogether more prosaic style of a language. Construction like I know, just my luck, and do you suppose signal an informal register of discourse while, in grammar, the subject is brought back to its more common first position in the clause. No one ever sent me yet. So we will moving on the summary of this topic. A position which regards literary discourses in previous to or resistant to the linguistic analysis is utterly at odds with the rationale of modern stylistics. Stylistics is about interrogating text, about seeing a text in a context of its other stylistic possibilities. Upholding the view that literary language is somehow outside the boundaries of overall language system does little to enable or facilitate this sort of textual intervention. It makes sense, therefore, to treat the concept of literary language with a healthy degree of skepticism. Indeed, a somewhat more useful way of approaching the issue of stylistic creativity, whether it found in literature and types of discourse, is through the concept of literariness, a term first coined by Roman Jacobson. Literariness is a property of text and context, and inheres in a pattern of the language in use as opposed to pattern of language in isolation. Crucially in keeping with Jacobson's other important term, the poetic function, literariness is not exclusive to literature. It is instead a principle of expressiveness that transcends literature. Literariness also accommodates a text's capacity to absorb other voices and styles, and sorts of textual techniques witnessed in example from Dorothy Parker. This theme, the multi-voicedness of literary discourse, is the main focus in the following unit. So thank you for watching. I am Mia Basilisco together with my partner, Jevon Chris Asayas.